Good morning, everyone. This is Jacob Folger, artist sculptor, and today we're going to talk about smoothing clay, but we're also going to talk about some hacks that you should know about and things you can do with clay. I'm also going to give you my recommendation for the best air dry or self-hardening clay, what I recommend and what I use and have used for nearly 30 years. And we're going to talk about several things that will be useful when you're sculpting clay. This piece here I'm working on now is for a tutorial that will probably be live on my channel by the time the smoothing video comes out. So you can find that link in the video description along with the tool and supply list. Now, some of the tools we'll be using, a relatively firm bristle brush, a smaller, very soft bristle brush, a wood sculpting tool, and a ball tool. And those are the main tools I use, both for sculpting and for smoothing and bringing structural integrity to the piece when I make it. Also, I use a cloth sometimes, and it's good to have that. Also, to keep your hands clean while you're sculpting, because if your fingers are all mucked up with clay, that can get into the work and make it difficult to sculpt, and also sculpt smoothly. And we're going to talk about that also, sculpting smoothly so that you don't have really lumpy, bumpy pieces when you sculpt. We're also going to have a glass of water, a cup of water, or something like that, and also a spray misting bottle. So, if you could please give the video a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Hit the bell icon so you get a notification when I upload. Let's get started. So we're going to talk about smoothing first, and so what I like to do, let's talk about if it's really rough. If you're a beginner, you're starting out, you probably are going to have a pretty rough piece to begin with. So you would want to use more than likely to start off with, a more firm bristle brush, like this, and you would probably want to use more water than you would normally use. It's not always a great idea to put tons of water on your piece, but if you really need to work the clay and get it soft so that you can get it nice and smooth, it might be a good idea to get it more wet. So to give you an example, let's see if I can find a rough spot on here. I know some of the mushroom top here is a little bit rougher than I would like. So I would get my brush wet and, not wipe it off, because normally I would wipe it off, but the mushroom is a little bit bumpy, and so I want to get the clay really soft and spend time just going over it. You might get it wet and come back, get it wet and keep it wet for 10 or 15 minutes until it's softer, and then start working it and smoothing it. So if you have rough spots, like at the top of the frog's eyes here, it's rougher in more than I like, so yeah, I would keep that pretty wet and for a while until the clay softens, and then the brush would take off clay and smooth the piece. And if you have a lot of rough spots, you could just work on that for a while, and just get the clay soft. That's the main thing, is to get it soft so that you can actually smooth it. So in that case, I would probably use a lot of water. So yeah. So also, so we'll talk about smoothing with a softer bristle brush. Would be when you get it to a point where it's really pretty smooth. You can take a softer bristle brush and not have so much water on it. You can either wipe it on a cloth or just pull the water off with your fingers, and then you would drag, you want to drag the brush into the work like that. See that? See how I'm dragging it? You don't want to poke it into the clay because that puts marks. And marks can be kind of hard to get out. So you don't want to put marks in it. So you want to drag it into the work. So, and just go over everything and get it really smooth. Now, let's talk about the importance of smoothing clay. Well, this is air dry clay or self-hardening clay, same thing, and it's water-based clay. So if you are smoothing it and doing a really good job of smoothing, you're also getting the clay wet, and the water acts like glue, and it helps everything stay put down the road after the piece is dried out. So that is, it's a really good thing to smooth, especially in the detail areas, the cracks and crevices that you find on your sculpture. So if you have those, it's also a good idea to take a little bit of clay. Okay, so we're going to talk about filling voids. When you're sculpting a piece, and depending on how you're sculpting, if you're carving the piece, you might not have this problem. But if you're doing it the way I'm doing it here for this tutorial that I was making with this frog, you're going to have voids, places, holes, and that sort of thing. Now, it's really important to fill those. Take a small bit of clay and just put it back in there and fill it up. Fill the void. It will give the sculpture a lot more structural integrity if you do that, and then you can go in and smooth it with a brush. Now, sometimes you want definition there. You want people to see the definition of the arm, or you don't want the body blended into the mushroom. So you could go back then and just add a line to define that spot. But it's definitely important to go around your sculpture and fill all those voids, and then smooth them out. And then if you need to, or you want the definition, you could go back and just take your knife and carve it in, like I just did. So the smoothing is, has more than just appearance. It's really a lot about structural integrity of the piece. Yeah. One thing that might help you, when I make a piece, I start with smooth clay to begin with. If I'm making a shape like a leaf or something like that, I'll roll a ball and it'll be smooth to start off with. Then when I make the leaf, I'm paying attention to the smoothness of the piece and keeping it, moist. I keep it wet, so when I'm working on it, it's easy to work on, and easy to keep smooth. And then when I add it to the sculpture, the other thing I do is something called wetting and scoring. You might have heard the term slip. I've seen a few videos where people suggest a scoring, and they talk about slip. Well, slip is a mixture of clay and water, but what I do is replaces the slip. I use either a wet tool or, well, ideally a wet tool. I'll score the piece that's going on, and then I'll score the part that it's going on to. Like, just to give you an example, take a bit of clay here. I'll score this. I score it with a wet tool, and or score it and wet it with a wet paintbrush, like that. And what you've got there is not just a score, but you've got the slip. The slip is there. You've muddied it up and you scored the piece, and you've got it wet, and that is slip. So when you put the two pieces together and give it a slight twisting and pressure, it becomes very good bond, and is highly recommended when you're sculpting, because otherwise the pieces are not really bonded to each other. It's really important to score and wet the two parts to be joined, and then sort of gently twisting and applying pressure, you join the pieces of clay. If you're sculpting air dry clay, there are rules you have to follow, and I have gotten comments on my channel from time to time about clay that I recommend, and they say, "Oh, I made a beautiful piece and it fell apart." Well, if you don't do it a certain way, it probably will fall apart. You have to do it a certain way, and wetting, scoring, blending, filling voids, keeping your sculpture wet while you're working on it. When you leave it alone and take a break, cover it in plastic, wet it and cover it in plastic. Keep your misting bottle handy, and wet your sculpture frequently, and also the clay that you're working from. Your clay here, you got to keep that wet. And then you can use a plastic bag. So you want to take a break for an hour? Don't leave it sitting, because it will dry out, and it's hard to bring it back from a dried out place to come back and sculpt. You can recycle clay. When I'm sculpting, I often end up with little bits of dry clay. This is all dry. So that's kind of a hack a lot of people aren't aware of. It depends on the clay. Some clay has some chemical process in it. When it dries, it gets hard after a certain amount of time. You're limited on how long you can sculpt with it and that sort of thing. The clay I recommend, and I've been using for about 30 years, is a product made by Amico. It's called Marblex, and it's self-hardening air-dry clay, and it's very durable. And if you sculpt with it, and you follow these rules that I'm talking about now, scoring, wetting, filling voids, blending, all this sort of thing, it's a very easy clay to work with. It's very wonderful product. I would recommend that you use Marblex. It's also not that expensive. I buy it online. I usually buy 25 pounds at a time. You can get it in 5-pound boxes and 25-pound boxes. As far as I know, they might have smaller sizes. It's very easy to sculpt, and when you put it in a position, it stays in that position. It doesn't droop and fall over. And I mean, if you're going to be sculpting something like this, you don't want to make your own clay. You want to buy it from somebody that is a reputable dealer and maker of clays. So that in the end of the day, you've got not just a sculpture for now, you've got a sculpture that's going to be around for many years and years and years. So I don't recommend using homemade clays and clays that are not reputable. They've been around for many, many, many years. A lot of artists use it, and it's a high quality product. So yeah, I recommend Marblex. It's I buy it. I usually spend about $42 for 25 pounds, and most of the places that I order from are shipped for free. So yeah, so that's something you can do. As far as the little bits of clay, what do? Wrap them in a wet towel and put it inside a plastic bag. In a couple days, you'll have moist clay again. So, also the clay, the Marblex clay, comes out of the bag ready to sculpt. You don't have to do anything to it. You don't have to mold it. You don't have to condition it. You don't have to soften it. You don't have to wet it. You don't have to do anything. It comes out pliable and ready to sculpt. So it's a really easy product to use. It's affordable, and you can get it in decent sized quantities or small quantities. And if you follow these basic rules, I mean, your sculpture will last a very long time. It'll be a very worthwhile thing that you can pass on. So yeah, and let's see. It's always good to have a flat surface to work on. So I just used the lid of a yogurt container for this sculpt. A wood board would probably be preferable. But when you want to take it off, the suction holds it there. The clay is bonded to the board, and it can be kind of hard to remove. There's a clay cutting tool that's a very strong, very thin wire attached to these handles, and you can put it at the back of the sculpture, hold it to the board with your fingers, holding the wire to the board, and you can cut it away. Now, I did just cut it away so it's sliding. But normally, the wire would come to the front, and then it would be released. And when you pick up your sculpture, you should check. Sometimes there'll be little gaps, holes. There's not here because I already filled them because I just removed it a few minutes ago. But if you see any striations or cracks or crevices, here's an example. This leaf here, you can see is not really blended there. So I would blend that because it will make it more sturdy. You can also fill gaps with clay and just blend them in. But yeah, it's good to have one of these wire tools. And they come with most toolkits. When you buy sculpting tools, but you can also just look online for clay cutters. So it's a good thing to have for sure. And you can see there's a little gap under that leaf there, so filling that in, is a good idea. Just kind of blend it in there and just fill it in. And if you have to, add some clay and fill it in. But yeah. Now, if you're really stuck and you just cannot get your piece smooth, or for whatever reason you just can't get it smooth, an option may be for you. I still recommend spending time filling the voids, filling the little holes, spending some time trying to smooth, definitely. But you also can take any kind of tool, and you can add texture, which is actually can be very pretty. especially with some finishes. I know a lot of the finishes I do, texture is so awesome with the finishes I do on my pieces. So, you can take a soft tool, a ball tool, and you can add texture to your piece, which will take away from, that the obvious bumpiness and lumpiness that you might have experienced in your sculpting. And I do it. I do it. I add texture frequently, and a lot of times, depending on the piece, I will leave my sculpting marks in. I've done that for years. I leave them in. I leave all the knife marks and all that stuff. I still go in. I do the blending and filling the voids and getting some water on it. Before that point. But yeah, I do often leave sculpting marks in because I just like it. I like that raw appearance of leaving sculpting marks in. So that's about it. And I just take your time with your piece, and I think sometimes people become impatient when you're smoothing. And I often recommend to people, I just say, you know what, make a cup of tea. Maybe invite a friend over, put some music on. You can chat with your friend. This is not rocket science, and just sit there and visit with your friend while you smooth. I mean, or listen to some music. And also, I actually find it a very soothing experience to smooth clay, and even somewhat meditative experience. So, I enjoy it. To be honest with you, like this morning, it's Sunday here, and my church is meeting on Zoom right now because of the pandemic issue, and so I was listening to that on the phone. I joined on the phone, and I just sat here and worked on this piece. I worked on the smoothing and texturing and adding some little doors and stuff to the mushrooms, and and just it was very nice, meditative, wonderful experience while listening to church. So I definitely I recommend not getting overwhelmed. Don't think it's a daunting task. Think of it as a nice task. Something that you can do and actually relax with. So I recommend that. So I hope this has been helpful to you. And if you could, please give the video a like, share it with your friends and family. Leave me a comment. If you have any questions, leave it in the comment section. I will reply. And subscribe to my channel for more content like this. And hit the bell icon so you can get a notification when I upload. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.